Well, if the statistics over the last 43 years here in my market of the Fraser Valley are not enough for you to believe that real estate is a great investment, well, this video might change your mind, because there are tons of reasons that the market can continue to go up even higher. And because I'm a real estate agent and have been for 15 years now, I always have to say that the market will go up. Not necessarily because that's actually what does happen every 3 out of 4 years historically here in my market, but rather just me saying prices will go up will obviously influence the market in that direction. Demonstrating to the other 38 million of you Canadians out there just how powerful I really am. Or it could be that most Canadians aren't spending their time in the comments of this channel and they also value land, home ownership, and oh yeah, sleeping inside. And I'm going to tell you all about why the market could keep going up on today's episode of Your Income Depends on the Market Always Going Up. Of course you want a positive spin. The reality on the ground is very mixed. But first, I would love to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you would like to stay up to date on the latest in the real estate market. And if you like what I have to say for some stupid reason and want to hear more, you can join me and my real estate pumping friend Tom every Sunday morning on new episodes of the Tom Story Show, both here on YouTube and audio apps everywhere. And please note that if you need personalized advice and you're looking to make a move into or out of my market of Surrey, well, you can book a call with me right now using the link in the description below at a time that works best for you. And now onto the video all about the market that could very well continue to increase long term. First, let's start off with supply. Real estate agents like me most often speak of a shortage of listings on the market, and that has proven to be true over the last few years, with metrics like the consumption rate, which has often stayed above 20% since the beginning of the pandemic, and reaching as high as 97.2% in December of 2021. This means that months of inventory continue to be under 3 months of supply, pushing prices up. And as soon as prices dropped because lending became so expensive in 2022, rents immediately shot up as first-time homebuyers were pushed out of the purchasing market and into rentals. But it's not just the market that has low inventory. This country physically does not have enough properties when compared to other G7 countries. In fact, Canada only has 440 dwellings per 1,000 people, compared to the average in the G7 at 480 per 1,000, with the provinces of Alberta, Ontario, and Manitoba being below our country's average, and only PEI, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland being above the G7 average. And if a province like Alberta wanted to catch up to the G7, the Oilers and the Flames would have to team up for another 273,000 homes in that province alone. Oh, and just so you know, Alberta only started 36,500 new units in 2022, meaning that they would have to continue at this same rate for 7+ more years just to catch up to today. And that would be without adding factor number 2 to the list, immigration. Because from 2016 to 2021, Canada added 1.3 million people to the country, according to Canada.ca, with a plan for another 447,000 this year and 451,000 next year. Add that to the 437,180 from last year, and we are at almost 1.5 million new Canadians in just these last 3 years alone. And I would bet that there's a really good chance that those new Canadians will also want to sleep inside. But those numbers are only new Canadian citizens and PRs. CIBC is actually warning that these high immigration numbers will actually cause an even further crisis, including rentals, because the number of actual bodies that entered into the country last year was actually closer to 1 million. After you account for foreign students, temporary workers, and other non-permanent visas. So all of this means that we could add as many as 1.45 million new home buyers to the marketplace by 2025, with an uncounted amount of new renters. And we are only adding, at best, 240,000 new homes nationwide, and that number is in decline, with some reports saying that that number is in fact only 210,000, and it must increase by almost 50% immediately, meaning that we need to build 100,000 more homes per year starting 3 months ago. And that doesn't account for the already higher than expected 145,330 new PRs added so far in 2023, meaning that Canada's target might be exceeded by 135,000 people just this year. And that essentially is like adding an extra town of Abbotsford, BC in population by mistake, adding 4 Abbotsfords instead of the intended 3. So with not enough houses and more people, prices have only one choice, and that is, unfortunately, to go up. But that raises another question, which is, how are people going to pay for this? Like, how are they going to buy real estate and get their down payment? Well, first-time buyers more and more often are turning to, yep, you guessed it, mom and dad. Better Dwelling says that as much as 30% of first-time home buyers are receiving gifts from their folks as their way to get into the market in what is becoming the biggest wealth transfer in history. And according to Benjamin Tao of CIBC, the most common amount they are seeing gifted is $150,000. And that in itself has first-time homebuyers clicking the like button for the YouTube algorithm because they have wicked sweet parents. And what about those new Canadians? Do they have enough money to buy? Well, in fact, the answer to that question is, it depends. Because the average new Canadian comes to this country with $47,000 in savings. That's enough to actually get into my market here of Surrey in an entry-level condo. But looking further into the numbers, immigrants coming to BC have an average of over $86,000 in savings, almost $29,000 for Albertan settlers, and only $7,388 for those entering Quebec. Meaning that often immigrants are settling where they can afford to. And it was found in 2018 that people that were new to Canada actually had a higher median wage than the Canadian population that was born here by as much as 15%. But let me tell you what I'm seeing with wages of new permanent residents here in BC, and that is, well, they are wild, particularly in the IT and computer spaces, which is the overwhelming majority of my current buyers. Yeah, new to Canada IT workers. On top of all that, Canada's economy just came in hotter than expected with an increase of 3.1% in GDP. Wages are rising faster than that, which is not actually good for inflation, which also came in hotter than TIFF wanted at 4.4%, when it was expected to be at 4.1%. And if you think inflation is going to continue to be a real issue, which it currently is, then holding real estate would also be wise because the value of that property will stay the same, but the dollars used to buy that will devalue, which is another way to look at why prices will increase. At the same time, the unemployment rate remains at absolute record lows, all pointing towards a strong economy. Some would say too strong. And until we get to a point where there is a large change in the economy, further large interest rate increases, less immigration, or more new housing starts, the bull argument for Canada's real estate sector remains a very strong one. Oh, and if you want to know the counter argument to everything I have just stated here, just go ahead and read the comments below. Don't do that. Never read the comments. But in fact, if you are interested in buying real estate here in my market of Surrey in the Fraser Valley, remember that you can always book a call with me using the link in the description below. Thank you very much for subscribing, clicking the like button if you have rich parents, and we'll see you in a couple of days.